All right, let's do a quick sound check. Thank you, Darrell, as per usual. Always the great intro. I always it's Marvin. It's somebody had mentioned one time that you sound like Marvin Gaye. I think that was the right name, and it's a very deep and relaxing voice, and it sets the tone. Perfect. Okay, awesome, Larry. Thank you. Hey, Jim, Jeannie, Alan, Gator, excelente. Oh, Barry White. Yeah, it's Barry White. Yeah, boy, I got that one messed up. Whew, it's been a long year. Got that one messed up pretty hard. Um, so yeah, and so Jay, good question. Would it be possible to show any synergy between the Voodoo lines and the pinpoint profits, multi-snap? Yeah, absolutely. There's some fundamental differences there, but we'll go ahead and kind of dive in. And the idea with tonight, we're going to tag team myself and David. For those of you that have these tools, going to show you some things that we're looking at in these current markets, some setups that we see with the Voodoo lines. If you don't know what these are, just kind of give you an introduction to them as well. This is kind of the core of our levels-based trading in terms of some of the things that we look at. Hey, from Chicago. Hey, Pavlin. Ray Momo, I like that. But okay, so let's just kind of dive in. So I said here that the webinar will begin shortly, and it is in fact begun. So what we're going to be talking about is, it's funny. The toughest thing about any of these things that we do is like, man, what do we call it? What are we going to call the webinar? Because we actually have to find a title. So we are not professional. We're not making professional series on Netflix or anything like that. So we're not really good at catchy titles, but that's what we're calling it: Turning Point Secrets. And we will just kind of dive in like that. And really, it's just the idea here. If you're not familiar with Voodoo lines, or if you've forgotten about them, it's pretty crazy how much of a line in the sand they present in the markets, no matter nearly almost what market you're trading. It'll be myself and then David Starr, who has actually created these. And we'll talk about that, and I'll turn this over to David here in a little bit. So first of all, welcome. Welcome to tonight's webinar. And then I did want to give a quick shout out to all the veterans. A couple of people had mentioned that it's like, hey, we do have a couple of veterans working for us. I know we have veterans as clients. For those of you that don't know, we recently had Veterans Day, of course. This is me here in all these photos. This is my great-great-grandfather. He fought in World War I. My grandfather, Frank, fought in World War II. He was left for dead in Italy. They came back 2 weeks later. He was still alive. Took him a year to recover in the hospital, and he came back. His leg was all torn up. And then this was my dad, who served in Vietnam. The military bug did not go with me. I never joined, but I grew up in a fairly disciplined household and appreciate all the lessons learned there. So, diving into this. Diving into the levels. So yeah, absolutely. So, and YouTube for sure, absolutely. So for the SPX here, the thing I want to point out here is that when we're looking at this, and of course this is an up-to-date chart of the S&P 500, and we look at this and say, well, it stopped here, and then it was here, and then for some reason it stopped here, and then it came down to here, and then gosh, it came down here, and then went up to here, and what is all that? What causes that? And I know we talk about a lot of stuff. We talk about Fibonacci, we talk about Bollinger Bands. There's a lot of things, profit zones. Of course, I'm a huge fan of the squeeze. It's like, okay, here's a squeeze, and the squeeze drove us down here. And those are all things I love. And what was interesting is gosh, David, I don't even remember. It must have been 5 years ago. I'm trying to, because I remember where I was when we were talking, and that was when we still worked out of apartments, and we've been in this office now for almost 5 years. So it had to be 5 or 6 years ago. And David had sent me a couple emails like, hey, John, I follow some of your work, and you got to check these out. They're pretty good. And of course, I get a lot of emails like that, right? I'm like, yeah. And he was persistent. And about 6 months of that, I finally, he caught me at the right moment. I'm looking at it, and we got on the phone, and I was like, this is genius. How did you figure this out? And he kind of went into the story a little bit. I was just like, oh my gosh. And so what I want you to do is just look at this. Look at this price action here. And Yeah, right about 5 years ago. So here's it now. If you look at this now, we're going to put, we call them voodoo lines. Now they're based on Elliott wave highs and lows. Okay, so I call that voodoo. And that is, and the reason I call it voodoo, because if you get 10 Elliott wave guys in a room, you're going to get 10 different answers to the upside and 10 different answers to the downside. So I call it voodoo. However, David has explained how he uses Elliott wave to me, and is the most accurate representation that I've ever heard of. Like, okay, so this guy not only knows his stuff, but the way he develops these levels is based on, I mean, again, this is, we're not going to, it's not, all the how and stuff like that is a longer explanation, but essentially it's based on that. But the nice thing about these things is they don't move. You know how pivots move every day and stuff like that? These don't move. So if you look at this chart, now I'm going to put the voodoo lines on. Boom. Now, all of a sudden, it's like, okay, all of this stuff makes sense. Those levels never change, okay? And by never changing, I mean week, a month, 2 years from now, 2 years ago, these levels do not move, okay? That's the number one key with this. When we're doing Fibonacci, right? When we've got the levels based on the Bollinger Bands, those are moving constantly. Those are adapting to the current markets, okay? And they're constantly moving. Whereas these are cement bricks in the markets that never move, and price has to come up against these. I call them cement bricks because when price comes up to these, they at least typically pause, okay? And here's a couple, and there's gonna be a bunch of questions about this, but I want you to note this on the, well, so these do not, so they don't change. So if you drill down to you can use these on a 1 minute chart for day trading. The levels are the same. And what's nice is when you drill down to on a 1 minute chart, you can actually go down to an extra layer and see some more minutia that you can go in and trade against as well. Okay. So we're gonna talk about a couple of things here. First of all, notice that there are 4 main lines. Okay. So the fire line is the red line. This is the big daddy or the big mama of the bunch, whichever one you prefer. That is the huge magnet, okay? From there, the second most important one is the tree line, okay? That's the green one. From there, the third most important one is the snow line, which is white. And from there, the fourth most important one is the skyline, which is blue. These are just mere pausing points, okay? So what happens here, I call it some of my favorite trades, what I call the snow line trap. When markets get stuck between snow lines, they just bing, bang, bong back and forth for a long time. It typically takes a squeeze to get them out of there. Now, while they're banging back and forth between the snow lines, you can see here that they pause at the skylines. Those are why they're called the pausing points. It's like, oh, pause, 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 pause. Pause, 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 drop, pause, 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 and then you'll see squeezes and stuff like that. But then that's the huge test right there. Now, what happens here is if it breaks out of that box, it's attracted to the next big level. In this case, it's the fire line, and ultimately this just becomes this magnet. You can see we plunge here with the squeeze, we get a little kickback to the snow line, and then puke it up into the fire line. Now, it should be noted here that all this volatility, all this volume could not push the S&P 500 through this level in any meaningful way. Yeah, there were some tries. Ultimately, it held. We rallied back to, surprise, first we paused, back to the snow line. Okay, and then we came back down and puked right at the fire line, and we've been trading here ever since. Okay, we finally are just now trying to move back away from it. So again, if you look at this with the before and after, okay, so here is it without the lines, here's with the lines. All of a sudden, there's order to the universe. Okay, and again, these are big levels. They're here all the time. So now let's look at some other markets. So this is the yen. Okay, now this is the yen Forex market, which is the inverse of the yen futures market. I think for those of you guys that knows, I typically watch the yen futures. If the yen futures are going down, typically the stock market is going up. This is the cash Forex market, so it's the opposite. So essentially, if dollar yen is going up, typically stocks are going up. Okay, I don't know if that was confusing or not, but again, JY is futures, and it's the inverse. So if that's moving down, essentially, then USD JPY is moving up, and then the stock market is moving inverse of yen futures. Anyway, that's a more complicated thing. But again, what we want to know here is, why does the market turn where it does? Why does the yen suddenly turn at a specific level? Bam. Okay. Back to this fire line is formidable. All right. Rejected here. Let's go test the snow line. Rejected here. Let's almost test the snow line again. Consolidate, consolidate, consolidate. Explosion up. We almost get to the snow line. Okay. And this was a squeeze, of course. Come back. Oh, consolidate, 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 consolidate. Let's come up here. Oh, peter out. Come back to the fire line. Okay. All that kind of stuff. So right now, this is going higher. That's bullish for stocks. That's why I like to watch this. I do think that dollar yen is going to make it up to the snow line at 115.31. Guess what? That is bullish for stocks. You got to know, if you're serious, if you're a serious student about the stock market, you've got to understand and watch what the yen is doing. And guess what? If the yen is coming down, like right here, the yen is coming down and the stock market's coming down. This is mid-October, remember. If the yen's stopping here, guess what? The stock market is too. Fire line, fire line, fire line. All right, so let's look at CRM. CRM had earnings today. This is a stock that we did an earnings play on. And again, if you're looking at this, and it seems like, yeah, Andrew, I'll show you some future stuff as well. So if you're looking at this, it's like, okay, we came down here, and then for some reason we stopped here, and then we plunged, and then we came here, and now after hours, we closed at 127.54. After hours, we're at 137.75, which is above the expected move on earnings, which is going to be about right here. So keep an eye on that level. So now let's add the voodoo lines. Bam. Wow. Okay. A shocker, right? So now here we are. It's like, okay, we came, trapped between the snow line. Let's hang out at the tree line for a little bit. Trapped between the snow line. Like, this is one of my favorite things. You just bing, bang, bong, back and forth between the snow line. You get out of there, boom, let's go to the tree line and hang out there. Okay, let's go back to the snow line. Now we make it through. So we go to this snow line. That becomes the top, right? Okay, we get a big sell-off, tree line. And you can see how, and then of course, boom, we get the fire line. Now, where's it going to open tomorrow? Right here at the tree line, give or take. So again, the stuff to me is kind of fascinating. And the first time David was showing me this, I was like, how is this possible? Again, these aren't adapting. They're not being updated every day. You don't have to do anything. Once they're on your chart, you don't have to do anything. You don't have to draw them. You don't have to map them out. They're just there. They're permanent. They're something that you can rely on. They're going to be there forever. That's the thing that blows my mind, because a lot of the levels and things like that I'm used to, you have to adjust and draw them out and they're moving. And that's great, because there is a rhyme and a reason to that as well. But what's nice about this is that these are just solid. Okay, they're there. You can put orders there well in advance and pick up these instruments. So from here, and then look at the 10-year notes. Like the 10-year notes here, and I've been watching this. This tree line has been formidable. Ever since we took it out, boom, rally to the tree line, failed, okay? Again, these are day trading pausing points. Then we come back to the skyline, back to this pausing point, boom, back to the tree line, back to the skyline, back to the tree line, back to the skyline, back to the tree line. And now, again, sometimes they come close, but a lot of times they stop right at the tick. Consolidate, consolidate, consolidate. And the bonds are amazing in how they do that. Somebody else was asking earlier about, well, what about, Tesla? So Tesla, it's been crazy, right? All it's been doing is being really, really volatile between its upper fire line and its lower fire line, okay? And then you can see it spent a lot of time between these two tree lines. You get squished between these snow lines. At this point, what I'm looking for is this daily squeeze fires long, and we're actually going to go back and retest the fire line yet again at $376. So I've got bullish butterflies on this. We've got put credit spreads. We've got call debit spreads, all based on this relationship with Tesla and all the stuff about the news and all the high short interest. All it's doing is just pinging back and forth in an extreme way against these voodoo lines, which never move, okay? They are always there. All right, so what about day trading ES? This is what we did in the trading room today. So today, it's good for like 4 or 5 points. Called this out. Hey, we're buying the S&Ps here on this pullback into this level. And, we didn't hold it all the way to the close. We were just kind of looking for a quick move We made our $937.50 on a 4-lot, and then we moved on. So this is the kind of stuff where, again, especially like on a fire line like that, that's a big deal. When you break through that, you buy the first pullback there. And we did, in fact, rally, and we're rallying overnight right into this midpoint. These are excellent on the futures. This is when I first started talking to David, and he was using these, he's like, oh yeah, S&P futures, Euro, that's the main thing he looked at. And I was like, well, can we start adding more stocks to this? How does it work with stocks? And there's not every stock, but a large number of stocks that these are effective on. And of course, the only thing that these are created for are the stocks that it's effective on. And typically, of course, it's going to be the larger stocks with more of a history and things like that too. So what's the bottom line here? The bottom line is that this is the main, there's a bunch of traders here at Simpler Trading. The commonality here, I'd say, that all of us use is the Voodoo lines. Some of us rely more on other indicators than others, but we're all looking at the Voodoo lines, no matter what kind of trading we're doing. These levels do not move. They allow us to plan in advance, whether we're doing an income trade, whether we're doing a butterfly, whether we're doing a directional trade. They allow us to see in advance where the move is likely to terminate. Okay, and so really the question is, what are they? Okay, what are they? And so with that, I want to let's hear from the creator. And I joke, with David, it's kind of like the mad scientist behind the scenes, because the logic in how he came up with this, and we're not here to talk about all the logic on this. It's just more kind of giving you kind of a quick ballpark of like what these are. But David's going to take about 10 minutes, talk a little bit about some of the things that he uses them for. And then from there, what I want to do is we're going to show you some more examples. You guys can ask about quotes and stuff like that. And then from there, what we're going to do is for people that already have the Voodoo lines, we're going to do a free live trading for you guys to kind of do that. And then for those of you that don't have the Voodoo lines, we're going to show you how to get them and do, live trading and all that kind of stuff too. So with that, David, I will turn this over to you. And I'll give you a minute here to get hooked up on the mic and stuff like that too, and we can kind of dive into this.
Yeah, hey, thanks, John, and thanks everyone for joining us here tonight. I always have a fun time talking about the Voodoo lines, and I recognize a bunch of old friends who I know use the lines here. Thanks for joining us. And of course, everyone new. I'm showing right here a chart of Amazon. I saw a lot of questions sort of coming up asking, hey, do you only trade the fire lines, or do you trade all of the lines? What do you do? And that's a little bit of a in-depth question. I'll try and hit that somewhat. Of course, a lot of questions coming through about what these are based on. Are they fib? Are they Gann lines? Are they pivots? Really none of those. They have some fib in them as part of some of the calculations. And as John said, they're somewhat based on Elliott wave. But as John also mentioned, you talk to 10 different Elliott wave analysts and you get 30 different opinions about where the market's going. And one of the knocks on Elliott wave is it's very subjective. It's after the fact. And what I like to do with anything, right, is if there's a weakness in something, how do you turn that weakness into a strength? Well, if Elliott wave provides a great way of describing how the market works, but only after the fact, is there a way that I can use the after the fact patterns, right? Elliott wave patterns that happened way in the past, so far in the past that any bunch of Elliott wave analysts would look at it and agree on what the pattern was, that I can get levels out of those by just doing some math in a consistent way. And that's what Voodoo lines are. They're a way of saying everyone in the world agrees that Elliott wave, well, not everyone, right? But lots of people agree that Elliott wave is sort of great at describing how the market moves, but after the fact. Okay, that's fine. Let's use that. Let's find a way to make use of that after the fact consistency and see if we can project levels from it in a consistent way that end up being useful. And so this is Amazon. John described to you the fire lines, most important levels, tree lines, second most important. Our all-time high in Amazon was up here, right, at a Voodoo fire line, the most important level. But what's interesting about this is how we got there, right? It came up, it crawled above this fire line, and as long as once it holds this and starts to head up, well, then it targets this fire line, holding that as an important support level, sends it up to this fire line. Guess what? It didn't climb above this one. It failed. It failed. It tested it for a kiss goodbye up here and sent this thing back down, right? Now, there's certainly questions of, okay, that's great. We know this now. How do you trade this? And that's one of the reasons why coming up, we are planning, right, a detailed, walkthrough of how to use these levels. So certainly one way, and lots of people do this, is they simply say, okay, I see these are good support and resistance levels. I've been trading for a while. I know how to trade at support and resistance. I've done it with trend lines. I've done it with moving averages. I've done it with pivots. I know how to do it. Give me levels, I can trade it. If you're one of those, take this out of the box. You can use it, right? But I want to, I've spent some time putting together a lot of thoughts on how you can use this in more detail in building, right, a roadmap for the market, a roadmap of, watching this move from this fire line to this fire line and seeing what happens in between, and incorporating in then, right, right, the next levels in here, and we'll go ahead and pop the tree lines in, and you can see now, right, that, oh, what did this do, right? Crawling up from this fire line to this one, a little pause at this tree line, resistance at this one, but holding the lower line to work its way up above, right? And in here, as it comes up from this fire line, stops at the tree line, right? Pauses here at the upper tree line, running to this one, right? I mean, it's pretty methodical. So again, I want to spend some time, more time than we have available tonight, to walk through, right, how to make use of these levels. But I think you can see real quickly right here, just, right, how these levels keep coming into play. And if we start layering in the snow lines, you'll see very clearly how those find interesting points in here as well. So as far as how you use these, yeah, you can trade at any of these levels. Right now, I was not in this Amazon move up, or not in much of it, just because the times when it was building support at levels, I was active doing some other things. But right, do I only trade at fire lines? No. And in fact, I wanted to qualify a downtrend here before I got involved. I sold Amazon, and folks in the options room may remember this, because I'm in the option room on Thursdays, right? So 2 weeks ago, this came right up to this tree line, and I sold it there. Why? Well, I'm going to walk you through in more detail the logic when we do this this class on how to use the Voodoo lines, but the real simple answer is, this had qualified itself as a downtrend. It held resistance here and started breaking the levels underneath it. And now, once it was turning into a downtrend, it came up to a resistance area, right? So I've got a bounce in what I believe to be a downtrend, and then I can just crank into shorter time frames in here. Let's see. Yeah, let's get into Amazon here on TOS. ready, aim, fire looks a little better on toss. And you can see when it was coming up into that tree line that we're talking about here on an hourly chart, we have kind of a perfect hourly doji holding right under this tree line with a really beautiful ready, aim, fire sell right there. That's what got me in. So, so again, just a great example, right, of how to use this. Could you have sold the top? Yeah, I suppose. If you were long, you had a great warning to get out in Amazon right at the top. Just like, let's get the S&Ps back up. Right, just like in the S&Ps, when we don't have as many indicators on the chart, I think you can see a lot more clearly this high here, right? The basically double top, end of September and October 3rd up here. I mean, right at a snow line. So you can see how this comes in at really important support and resistance levels. Now, the move down, did it stop right here at a fire line? Nope. But it still gave us, right, the area, and it let us know when this came back above this important level. And if you look at this on a daily chart, beautiful daily ready, aim, fire buy as it came back up above the fire line, that said, hey, give up on the downside for now. It's hard for me, and I've been bearish the S&P. I got out of my S&P shorts today after being short from up here, right? Because this climbed back above. I don't know the next step here, but if this continues to hold the fire line, I'll be back long. But I need to see that here. I need to see it commit one way or the other coming away from this fire line. But this provides one of the main guides I use for looking at the market. So there are some questions, right, about what time frames this works on. These levels are here on all time frames, right? So in terms of support and resistance on various symbols, the levels will be different distances apart. So these may not give you great intraday scalping levels all the time, but even if you're an intraday scalper, right, understanding what we're going to walk through later this week when we go through when we go through sort of how to build a market roadmap based on these lines, right? Just knowing that we're in that we're in a bull phase or a bear phase because we're holding support or holding resistance can let you know what you want to be focused on any given day. So John, I know we've got a lot of questions, but I know you had some more stuff you wanted to talk about. So maybe if you wanted to jump back in for a minute, and then we can try and hit the questions also.
Yes, absolutely. Let me make sure you guys can hear okay. And then I would like to show, here we'll get on that too, and just kind of show a couple of other, we're gonna look at some live charts here too, just so you guys can kind of get an opportunity just to kind of see. So if you guys want to shout out some symbols, now again, not every symbol is covered, but at least you'll kind of get a sense of where they are. The first thing I want to point out is that the levels don't change for time frames. So what you'll do is you'll see that on the daily chart, the fire line here is 2665. Well, if you go to the 15-minute chart, first of all, there's 2665. It's just on the 15-minute chart, you can actually drill down and see some of the smaller levels as well, right? So if we look at, say, Boeing, same thing here. You can see a big deal here with bigger picture, that fire line, snow line, right? Coming down, crashing into the tree line, that kind of stuff. You can kind of see it fairly clear there. Yeah, Facebook has just been walking down these things. You can see it's kind of just stepping down, right? It's like, we come, it's just like dink, boom, go to the next tree line, kind of pop back up to the snow line, let's go to the fire line, pop back up. So you can kind of see, and then it's just edge, boom, straight to the tree line, right? So, again, everything is kind of, if we look at Netflix here, kind of the same thing. Big move here where it's like it puked it up, got to the tree line. Oh my God, it's rallying. No, it's just going to the fire line. It's toast. So once you start to see these things, what's nice, and so what I find most effective is actually setting up a chart where I just have the voodoo lines. And that way I'm not looking at anything else. Had to sneeze there. I'm not looking at anything else. And I'm just focused on levels. And you can see here Netflix here. It's like, oh, if you're watching this, somebody was talking earlier about a gap down. If you gap down like this into the snow line, awesome, great. And then, if you're doing a day trade here, that's it. That's the easy move right there. And you can see, oh, we came back down here. We stopped on a dime. We pushed through it. Now we're pulling back here. If the market's strong tomorrow, I'd expect that we get to 271. Okay, and you can see on a daily chart, that's right there, right? So all you're doing is when you're on that intraday chart is it's just kind of a drill down. It's just kind of a drill down of that, all right? Yeah, let's look at Citibank. I actually have not looked at that. Now, we're talking individual stocks here, right? But it also works with ETFs as well. So if we look at XLK, okay, let me get rid of these Fibonacci's. So same thing. So you get the big, you topped out here at the snow line, you get the big puke, come back to the tree line, snow line, back up to the tree line. So same thing there. XLF. Same, you can kind of just see like, we stopped right there at the fire line, kind of where we are right now. Apple. Now, Apple was interesting. So Apple's been puking in a big way. So we topped out here at the snow line, tried to push through it again, snow line support. It finally goes, boom, right into the fire line. It barely does a bounce here. Now, what you'll notice here is you don't see any of the blue lines. So you can, go in here and just say, you know what? You can kind of adjust how many you see. I always want to see the big three, but sometimes it's like, you know what? I actually want to see the skylines too. So I'm just going to adjust how many lines I can see. There we go. So now I can see the skylines. And again, same thing. Once we peek through this, boom, snow line, boom, back to the, tree line. So this thing has just been hammered down to those key levels there. And then if you look at, 30-year bonds, again, these are all these markets here are things that kind of use this. I mean, we looked at CRM earlier. We can see tomorrow it's going to open up right at the tree line, and that's the nice thing about it. If we look at the NASDAQ futures here, so we had this kind of big move right down into that tree line there, and look at today. Today we got up here, petered out. And again, this line has been here the whole time. It's not like, oh yeah, we just added that yesterday. So you can plan this stuff, and so that's what I find that's fascinating about this. And so I can drill down on the 15-minute and really get a good eye view here, and then come over here and just kind of see where the next level is. IWM, this thing has had a tough time, but right now it's just hanging out here at the tree line. So how many symbols are covered? Most of the major stocks are covered. If you look at, like say Ulta, I think Ulta is covered. What will happen is, so David actually runs tests on all these to make sure that the stocks actually respond to this. Now, typically stocks that don't respond are going to be newer, like IPO kind of stuff. There's just not enough history, or they're just really thin. And if it's a really thin stock, it's not really moving to human emotion cycles and things like that too. What it's doing instead is just responding to the small amount of people who follow the stock, right? So that's certainly a lot different than just doing something, a lot different than a situation where you're getting a lot of volume, you're getting a lot of movement and stuff like that as well. All right. Any other ones you guys want to look at? And then I can show you guys a couple of other things as well. I mean, I do like that the I do like that on things like this where, oh, there's that. The things that I like about it, well, first of all, I always kind of look at it as, like teaching Dylan is easy. Like, he gets it. Like, wow, those are lines. I can follow that. Also, too, for any kind of day trading or anything like that, it's fairly straightforward. That's what I like. Again, you can plan in advance. Yeah, so Alibaba is an interesting one. So Alibaba, we came down all the way down, boom, 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 stopped at the fire line. Now, if things really get going to the upside, look at this. You got that fire line all the way up here. You certainly have this tree line right here. I'm certainly looking for that to get tagged. Roku, I don't know if Roku has it. It may not. It does not. So typically a stock that doesn't have it is just one that hasn't been around enough. And you can see the history here. I mean, this went public not too long ago. So you typically need a couple of years of history to get accurate levels. So that's one of the things I know they look at. MasterCard. So if we're taking a look at this, kind of the same thing. You can kind of see, same thing. We're just kind of pinging back and forth, between the levels. Right now, looking for a move back up to that tree line. Okay, so yeah, so we'll look at a couple other ones. Let me show you a couple more things here, and I'll tell you about the class. Again, free class if you already have this. And then let's see, we got this here. And then I just want to show you a couple of things here. Again, back to the mad scientist. I kind of like that. I don't know if David agrees with that, but I kind of like it. It's like you get to sit with the computer and back test all this stuff and say, man, this really looks really good. So overall, I mean, what I found with this is an awesome tool, in my opinion. Of course, it clears up a lot of noise on levels when to get into a trade. Again, you're not having to redraw Fibonacci lines or anything like that. They're just there, right? You can see them. Big on rotations. I love the snow line traps where you're just pinging back and forth between those white lines. Those fire and tree line magnets, because remember, when you break one, that next level just kind of acts as a magnet. Bigger picture, where is the next fire line? Okay, because that actually becomes the path of least resistance. From there, these tools help to provide a much bigger edge on entries and exits. Okay, why is that? You aren't waiting until things look good. So the problem with a lot of other tools is that by the time you get the buy signal, okay, so the market's coming down, and now it's going back up, and then right here, things look good, okay, and then you feel safe to get in. Well, what was wrong with getting in here? The problem with getting in there is that nobody has confidence in the levels holding. Okay, that used to be my problem too, and still I started looking at this stuff. And once you have confidence in those tree lines and those fire lines, what happens here is, Amazon had that fire line, of course it was red, had the fire line right there. So at the time of people that don't know about it, they're getting thrilled and euphoria. But if you already know that the fire line is right there, then you're not really freaking out about it. On the other hand, you're also watching because that there's a tree line down here. So as it's falling, you're already out up there. You're like, oh, cool. Well, here I know people are going to be panicking, and we got this rock solid wall that nobody else knows about, and that's where I can start, working my way in. So that's what I like about that. And so let me show you what these are real quick. So again, if you have these, you can ignore this. This is just real quick for those of you that don't have it, and I want to give you guys information on the live trading that we're going to be doing. So if you do not have these tools and you want them, this is our most premium indicator. If you go to simplertrading.com/voodoo, there's two packages. There's futures for $9.97, and then the stocks add-on for $9.97 and $97 a month. Okay. Normally, if you want both of these, it's $9.97. Okay, if I could write, it's $9.97 plus $9.97 plus $97 a month. Okay, that is $1,994 plus $97 a month. Now, even at that price, this thing more than pays for itself. It is, from all the feedback that we've gotten and all the tools that we use, the feedback is, John, this is the simplest, most profitable tool you guys have ever developed. Again, we released this 4 or 5 years ago. We just haven't talked about it in a while. So for those of you that don't have it, just want to tell you about it. What we're doing is a promotion where you can get both of these, both all the stocks and all of the futures and indexes for $9.97, and then the updates are just $47 a month. All right. So that to me, I mean, it's a huge opportunity to take advantage of this, of any tool that's going to get a positive ROI on your trading for years to come. This is it, and it's simple. But the thing about it is, it's not only simple. These are rock solid levels. Okay. Now the bonus is that we are going to have 3 classes associated with this. Now again, if you already have the Voodoo lines and you're already an active subscriber, okay, in our system with this, then all of this is free for you to attend. So we're going to have a strategy class on Thursday with David on Thursday, November 29th from 5 to 7 Central. If you are, then David's going to be doing live trading on Monday, December 3rd, and then I am going to be doing live trading on Thursday, December 6th. Okay, so we got JC, David, and then of course David will be doing kind of the strategy class as well, and I'll be doing a mix of strategy and live trading. Again, if you already have the Voodoo lines via an active subscription, you just let us know. It's free to attend all of this. And then, oh, and Henry will also be helping out with this as well. He's a huge fan of the Voodoo lines. So if you already have the Voodoo lines, don't worry. If you had them and you canceled your subscription, just re-enroll, and then you'll be able to go to the classes as well. And then that way, when you re-enroll, you're going to get the most updated Voodoo lines. Now, yes, the Voodoo line, what happens is that there's 2 things that happen with updates. Yes, the Voodoo lines are static, but there's 2 things that happen. One, if stocks make significantly new highs, then there's got to be a new series of Voodoo lines calculated in that white space. So that's part of the updates. But also we add new stuff, okay? Every month there's new stocks added, new indexes added, as David is able to go through and do all the meticulous research to make sure that this is one that's added. You can even actually make suggestions on that as well, okay? All right, so happy to answer questions, look at more stuff, but just want to make sure you guys have this. You know, again, it's the stuff that I use to show my kids how to do this. It is the mainstay of what we do in terms of one commonality that all of the traders here use is the Voodoo lines. And now hopefully you can see why. It's just like, oh my gosh. And it's, you know, it's different when you have that much confidence in a level holding. It really changes the dynamic. And the first time you sit there and you're scared and that market is coming down to that fire line, you're like, oh my God. And you close your eyes and you buy. It's just amazing then when you kind of watch, again, you're playing the probabilities here, but you're doing something limited risk, like options or something like that. There's nothing that feels better than when you're buying something or you're shorting something that everybody else is buying and you're right, okay? Or you're buying something that everybody else is panicking about, but you're right because you've got the level right there that's rock solid that nobody else knows about, right? Nobody else really uses this stuff except our clients that know about it. So that's the stuff that's fun there. It works great with the squeeze. It works great with the RAF and all that kind of stuff too. All right, so here's a question. What is the best way for people to, if they already have, do they email or if someone in customer support could tell me that? I think, or maybe that would be great. If you misload an update, will the next update give you the same update? Is it? Yes, Sonny. So yeah, so if you say you miss one and then you're getting the latest one, you're going to have the latest one. It'll overwrite, all the updates from previous quarters and months and stuff like that as well. Do you have to buy the RAF too? No, you do not. Does it work well with it? Yes, but you don't need it. You don't need to have it, right? They're standalone. Do you have a list of stocks with the Voodoo lines? Yes, we do. I don't know exactly where it is, but I know we've got a list that shows. It's quite a bit. I mean, hundreds of stocks. It's on the page. Okay. Here, let me bring up the page because I think it is on there. So this is the actual page versus a picture of the slide. And then we'll do some more Q&A and stuff like that too. All right, so when you come here, So there's that. There's a special bonus. Frequently. Oh, well, how long to do which class for Voodoo lines indicator? Perfect. So there's a lot of stuff on there. Voodoo lines. Perfect. And there you go there. Yeah, and of course with this, I would not recommend that you just choose one of these because of course you can get both for the same price. Ravi, I bought it on Sunday during the sale. Do I have access to the 3 training sessions? Yes, yeah. So if you've got the Voodoo lines and you've got the subscription set up, you have access. Yeah, so Don is just asking if we took the previous class, we have the Voodoo lines indicator, but we're not a current subscriber. Did you say that we can resubscribe and then take the class? Yes, absolutely.
And John, just to jump in with a question that we've been getting a few times, and to clarify something, right? So the Voodoo lines change rarely. So the S&P levels we've got have been there for a couple of years. I mean, the levels in bond futures have been there for a few decades. The stock levels change more often. Now, what does more often mean? Well, if it's a new stock, if it's something that's a recent IPO that everybody wants to trade, it's usually at least a few months before we can get it on there, and it may change pretty quickly thereafter. Right? If it's a stable stock, the levels may change every 5 years, every 10 years, but usually we can't go more than 2 months without having a handful of stocks needing to be updated, or stocks will split and we need to get new updates out for those levels. All sorts of reasons. It's not just because they make it to new highs, because look, we've got levels above the market. So it wasn't, we had a high back in January in the S&P 500 right at a skyline, and we saw how in September and October we made another high, right, new all-time high, right at a snow line. When we pushed above those January highs, we didn't need to put out new levels. Now, if this gets above, I don't know where the highest level is. It's way up there. But if we get above that highest level, we're eventually going to have to put something out. But more likely, it's when the long-term trend structure changes. And in the stocks, I am watching that almost every day. And that's the reason for the subscription, right? For the stocks, because they just change so often, and it's a full-time job just watching them. Now, with the indexes, the futures, the Forex that are all included, yeah, you get those updates because they just don't change quite so often. So that's why that all works like that. And I just wanted to sort of explain that a little bit. The updates are a pretty seamless process. I see a bunch of names of folks here who've been making those updates in TOS, roughly every month or so for years. And on every other platform that we have, the updates just happen automatically.
Okay, no, awesome. Perfect. Platform. So TradeStation and Thinkorswim, I believe, are I think those are the main ones. Somebody asked about Tastyworks. I still need to. I owe Tom Sosnoff a call. We have tried a couple of times to get some of our tools for Tastyworks. They have been overloaded just trying to build out their platform. But if you do get it, so one thing I've recommended to people, like, oh my God, I have Schwab, I don't want to change. The best thing to do there is if, TradeStation or Thinkorswim. Thinkorswim is 100% free. So, you download their platform. I think you can even just call them and say, hey, I need real-time data, or if not, put in $100. and then you can at least watch them, and then just trade wherever you want. And so I know a lot of people have done that too, because they're like, well, I don't want to change brokers, but I really love the tools. Yeah, so if you get both, and again, normally if you go to our store, then the way it's set up is here's the futures for $9.97, futures and indexes, and here's the stocks for $9.97 plus $97 a month. This is one of those rare opportunities where you can get both for $9.97 and just $47 a month. And so I encourage, and again, in terms of an ROI, even if you're trading one lot S&P futures, this is something where I was trading 4 lots today, did one trade and made $948. So a 4-lot trade with one trade against the fire line pretty much paid for the indicator. So it's one of those things where what I love about this is that it is the epitome of patience. It forces patience, because just don't take a trade unless you're at the level. Okay, this is something that one of my mentors, I've told the story about Mary Ann in Georgia, and one of the things she chastised me about is like, John, traders today, they just don't have the patience. They were not born with that patience gene. And what I love about this is it forces patience. Like, if you're not at a voodoo line level, don't make a trade. And if you follow that advice, you will, it's one of the best pieces of advice that I've learned, is that once you learn patience, then you got to have a trigger for that patience. And so instead of doing market orders or chasing stuff, you just place your orders at the voodoo lines. And if you're struggling with your trading and you're wondering like, what's going to turn it around, that is going to have such a huge impact, and it's really going to make you consider like, gosh, this whole idea about me trying to outsmart the markets doesn't work. What I need are key levels where I know in advance that there's a high probability of a turning point, and I can just place orders and then sit back and bite my nails and watch it unfold. And it can be the difference between being able to do this successfully for a living or just being frustrated and wondering why nothing is working out. So I love these things. I think they're easy to follow. They're rock solid. The probability is high, and you can use them for day trading futures, obviously doing swing trades with options and all that kind of fun stuff. It is it is not $9.97 every year. It is a one-time $9.97 price, and then from there is a monthly subscription of $47 a month to not only update all the levels as they need updating, but to continue to add new stocks and things like that too. So the $9.97 is a one-time fee, and that is the monthly fee. Are there lines for YM and NQ? Absolutely. So we can bring in some markets here. If you look at the NQ here, so this last puke down stopped almost at a dime on the tree line. You can see today rejected at the snow line, and essentially we're trading at the snow line right now. Why is 67, 14, 20 and a quarter such a big level? Because there's a snow line there. Okay. The YM. So take a look at the YM. Dow future is kind of one of my favorites. Same thing too. And if you look at this, what an amazing move up, dead stop, right? I don't know where the fire line is on this. Let me back out a little bit. Yeah, there it is. So this is a big, big level when we got up here. That was a huge breakout. But look at this back in February. So can you guys see that? So look at this back in, remember the February puke? The February puke stopped at a dime here. Oh, on the fire line, okay? That was not added after the fact. That was already there. It's just, you can't make that stuff up. It's amazing how many times that happens. So in the NQ, how do you use something like this? So a couple things I like to look for here is that, one, on the snow line here, we're looking for some consolidation. Now, we'll look at this and to say, okay, now, we know here that the NASDAQ is in a downtrend, right? So the question is, And I'm a big fan of trend lines, and if I can see that a trend line and a voodoo line come together, I will look at this and say, you know what, I bet the odds are pretty high that we could actually make it to that snow line, and then if it crosses with the trend line, we roll over and die, kind of a thing. So at this point, I am continuing to look for more upward movement. Now, if we do pierce the snow line, now I'm also a big fan of scaling. Yeah, buy one if buy one here and place an order to buy one here, and buy one here and buy, that's a lot, that's a lot of movement there. So if you don't want to do something like that, that's fine. You can buy one here and use a stop just below the next level, kind of a thing too. But again, the nice thing is it's levels-based trading, so you can plan for it. All right. Now, if for some reason the S&Ps come down tonight into the fire line, I would want to add to that. I would want to buy a position there. If we look at, if you own the voodoo lines for stocks, what's the added cost for futures? Good question. I mean, that should be fine. I mean, just if you're an active subscriber for it, I think we would just get that for you. I mean, you can just kind of give us a call or email there. Okay, so from there, can you comment on the new? Yeah, so how do they complement like the snap tool? So if we look at, say, here's the S&Ps with, and I'm just going to put the Bollinger Bands on there because it's the same thing as the snap tool, right? So there's a 30-minute S&P chart. So I mean, you can see right now, like here when when we're trading here, you put the 30-minute Bollinger Bands on there, and you can see it's kind of like, okay, well, we're kind of just hanging out there between that and the fire line, right? Now we're moving up, and like today, one of the things we did is we bought that pullback to the fire line with that midpoint there, and you can kind of I like to look at them both. You don't need to, but I like to look at them both for sure. And yeah, a lot of natural gas had that recent huge explosion. Guess where it stopped? Those poor bastards that had the short calls. It stopped right at the fire line. Again, this happens over and over and over again. And prior to that, we were just sitting here, just kind of like chewing away between the fire line and the snow line, and then you get this huge short covering rally, but at the fire line, it cannot get through that. For gold, this is one I've watched quite a bit on here. And if you just want to trade gold futures, I mean, these things bang back and forth between these things all day long. Now, this is the daily chart. This is a big move between 1190 and 1218. You can actually drill down if you want to do that as well. And again, from there, of course, if you want to look at the spiders, same thing. Or SPX.X, you can, same thing. You can kind of see where those key levels are. And then from there, of course, all kind of the major stocks and things like that too. Google, somebody was asking about Google earlier. Right now, you can see it got rejected today at the snow line. We kind of came up here and just got rejected. And that's kind of our sandwich, our playground that we're playing in right now. All right. So let me get the link again. Okay, yeah, so that's the link. Let me see what other questions you guys have. They offer oh, that's funny. The Voodoo lines are so great. They offer everything except making coffee. Now you can trade coffee on them. I think. I might be wrong on that. Let's see. Yeah, so coffee. But what you can do here is that, the next time you fall into the tree line, you can buy coffee futures and then go to Starbucks with your profits and buy some coffee. All right. Katie, I am guessing I'm an hour late. Yes, we're just wrapping up here. However, you can, of course, watch the recording. Pooh. Yeah, so Salesforce.com had earnings today. Are the Voodoo lines relevant during earnings? So, yeah, so what's interesting here is if you look at CRM, where are we going to open tomorrow? Okay, so first of all, we came up here, we petered out here, came down to the tree line, back up to the snow line, boom, boom, fire line. Where are we going to open tomorrow? Right at the tree line. So, what happens here is we gap up. We'll probably peter out against the tree line. We sold some put credit spreads. We'll, take our profits on those. I don't know if I would short that, but I certainly would take profits there. Are the live trading days recorded if unable to attend? Yes, absolutely. So yeah, and it goes for those of you that just joined us. So for the Voodoo lines, again, this is our premier premium indicator. We introduced this 5 years ago. We just haven't done a promotion on this in a year and a half. It is hands down our client's favorite indicator. People have made more money with this than anything else simply because of the discipline that it forces on the trader and the non-interpretation of it. The level is the level. Again, normally, if you're going to get the futures one, it's $9.97, and the stocks is an additional $9.97 plus $97 a month. So that's $19.94 plus $97 a month, which, again, this thing pays for that in like your first week, basically. However, tonight you can get both for $9.97 at $47 a month. So again, I know if you're looking at this going like, man, that seems like it's a pricey indicator, in terms of something being able to pay for itself over and over and over again, it's unmatched. And I think I showed this earlier today. I did one trade on the S&P futures today. I bought the pivot against the fire line. I made 4 points on 4 contracts and essentially was able to pay for the indicators. Okay, that's it. That's all you need. You don't need to catch the whole move. That's the ridiculous part of it. Oh, I got to catch the whole move. No, just get the high probability move. Right. So that's one that we called out, and it was one of the easiest trades of the day. So, and again, if you get the indicators, we're also going to include a strategy session on Thursday, November 29th from 5 to 7 with David. And then a bonus live trading session with David and Henry on Monday, December 3rd, D and Henry. And then a live trading session / strategy session with myself, December 6th. And then if you already have the Voodoo lines and you're already a subscriber, that's free. You can just come. And then again, remember, if you bought the Voodoo lines in the past, but you stopped the subscription updates, you can just renew it, okay? And you'll be able to attend the classes for free. If you are already a Voodoo line client and you have the subscription, you don't have to do anything. You're going to get an email with information to sign up. All right. Okay, I think I got all the questions there. Why didn't you tell us before we bought this new best thing? We've talked about this a lot. I use it all the time. So this is one we've been using this for 5 years. All the stuff that we utilize a lot of times complements this. Squeezes work great with this. RAF works great with this. The snap tools are awesome tools and they move all the time. I want to know what they're doing in relation to the Rock of Gibraltar Voodoo lines as well. All right.
Hey, John, while it's not earnings, kind of related to that question, maybe you could bring up a chart of GM really quickly.
Oh, sure.
Because it, not earnings, but that was a news stock, right? We had news in GM yesterday, and what you'll see when John brings up a chart is, we got a big old pop in GM yesterday. On a move up from where? A move up that originated right at a Voodoo fire line. That's where it found support. And you can see a big wick yesterday on John's chart that topped out right at a fire line. So the advantage of these levels that are there for a long time, right? Look, tomorrow GM could pop up again and head right back over that fire line. But I'm guessing that if you use that lower fire line to get along and you got to pop into that upper fire line, hopefully you're sitting there saying, gosh, this is a level where I want to take some profits because, I got a nice 5% pop, to open the day. And if you know ahead of time that you've got potential resistance there, you don't know if it's going to stop ahead of time, but it's a great place to take a little profit off and put it in your pocket, and then you're not bummed if it just drops right back down again as it happened to. So so the short answer is, does it work for earnings? I mean, these levels are wherever they are, ahead of earnings, after earnings. Do you know for sure whether things are going to go through them or not? No, but if you've got levels that work like this, my gut says you're going to be a lot happier knowing where they are than just having a blank chart that has nothing else at that spot that GM popped into.
Yeah, and then somebody was just asking about, I think that's great about, that's the thing too, it's funny about how, the news comes out right at these levels. If we look at UTX here, this is one somebody just asked about, and it's just like, again, it just makes it more methodical, right? You're coming down, you're kind of consolidating at the snow line, you come all the way back to the snow line to the tick, you come back to the tree line, go back to the snow line, and then puke it right back here. And so again, it just makes things a lot more logical, which is kind of fascinating, because you just wouldn't think that, you just kind of go through and just almost anything that you look at, it's like, oh my gosh, these things are, and it's, again, when you use these, it's like they don't change. It's not like they're drawn in hindsight. They're always there. That's the thing that I find most fascinating about them. Are they on the VIX? No, and I don't know if they would work on the VIX because of based on Elliott wave structure and stuff like that, but that would be pretty cool. Oh, very nice, David, and welcome. Yeah, and let me know if there's anything else you guys want to look at. Wells Fargo. So you can see we got a squeeze here, and we're just kind of, this snow line, we're just kind of crunching up along there. I'll go through here. I'll see if I can find some other stocks. I've got my watch list here. I can just pick some at random. I'm kind of curious about silver. I haven't looked at silver in a while. Yeah, so we're just, and again, if you trade futures, I mean, that's actually a pretty reasonable, you just bang back and forth between those levels. Copper, same thing, this fire line, you come down in there. And so RTY, see if that's been, yeah, so same thing there. Let me look at the transportation sector. Just kind of hanging out there. Somebody asked about Tesla. Yeah, so for Tesla, for all the violence that it's had, it's just stuck between two fire lines, I mean, essentially. And what I'm looking for, by the way, if you guys have not seen the monthly chart of Tesla, you got a big old hairy squeeze setting up here. Just like here, you can see that last move. I do think that this thing is setting up for a pretty big move higher. You can see here, if we scrunch that up, we already have some overhead targets here. Tree line at 465 with a monthly squeeze. Seems insane, right? But if you look at that move here, and if that's a sequential move here, then that's what you're looking for. So you got some pretty interesting stuff there. Johnson & Johnson. Monthly chart there. Oh, look at that big monthly squeeze. I didn't even know it had it there. But yeah, again, fascinating stuff where it's like, stops at a dime at the tree line and then comes down here. Yeah, it's going to push through and stuff like that. But basically, no one can say that that didn't hold. All right. And then we just petered out right there. We just tested again this month. Now we can, let's look at that. And again, if you switch to the daily, the levels don't change. You just get to zoom in a little bit closer on where they are. Aussie yen. Yeah, I don't know if that has it or not, but let's take a look. It does, yeah. So if you trade Forex, again, same thing. You can see, I mean, currencies work really well at these levels. Euro, huge fire line action there. US dollar, same thing there. And you can see that, when the big move down here stopped at the fire line, the big move up, it overshot it a little bit, but those fire lines certainly have an impact. Now you'll notice that TLT does not have them. Okay, obviously these are Fibonacci lines, and the reason they don't is that some ETFs, it's tough because the bond markets trade nearly 24 hours. TLT only trades 6.5 hours. Okay, so instead what you do is you just go look at 10-year notes or 30-year bond. Now, I know that TLT is kind of a blend, but obviously it's going to move with them. But if you look at this big puke of TLT, the, tree line almost stopped to the dime, right? So that's the kind of stuff that I just find pretty fascinating. And I think if I go back to the monthly chart here, yeah, that was the big fire line test here back in 09. That was a really big deal that it finally broke through that. And then from there, it just launched itself. Apple. So yeah, I remember. So for Apple, of course, it's had some big moves. But if you look at this from a fire line perspective, it's we consolidated here for a long time. We got up here, we pushed through it, came all the way back almost to the penny. When we broke through, we went straight up to the next fire line, almost pulled back here to the fire line. Finally, when we broke this, it was a huge move, pausing all along. Keep in mind this is a monthly chart. And now, again, this kind of puts it in perspective. I mean, I know Apple right now on a daily chart looks horrible, but compared to, at the beginning of 2016, it was an $80 stock, right? So, it's right, sit there resting on its tree line. EEM, yeah, so that's the emerging market ETF. So again, same thing there. You can kind of see big puke down, fire line. This recent stall out was at the tree line. And again, that's a monthly chart, so it kind of, if you drill down here to a daily chart, you can kind of see all the different levels and where it's bouncing and stuff like that too. So yeah, this is serious, serious professional level indicator. And the thing about it is that, in addition, to that, is that it instills a forced discipline on the trader that frankly most are lacking. It's like, oh God, it seems like I'm always buying the high, right? Or I'm always blah, 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 blah. If you would limit yourself to only restricting yourself to only placing orders around these levels, that makes your life pretty easy, because then you only have 4 choices to make, or let's say 5 choices, okay? All right, I've only got 5 choices to make here. I'm going to do a buy or sell at 261.67, 265.90, 272.75, here and here, and that's it. Suddenly your life's a lot easier. Now you don't, then because you don't care about all this other stuff. You're just, are you buying or selling these levels? If you buy it, great. You could sell some here. You can sell some here. You can sell some here, right? So if you take that approach, and we'll obviously talk more about this during the live trading, your trading will change because you're going to become forced to become disciplined. And the amazing thing about this is that you're going to be taking trades where it feels like you got to close your eyes, right? It's like, oh my God, why would anybody buy call options when the market's imploding? And of course, if you buy a call option here 30 days out, you can handle a little whipsaws and stuff like that, but then you get paid, right? And most of the time what happens is people wait and wait and wait and say, okay, finally it looks good, I'm going to buy some here because it's breaking out, right? And then, yeah. Okay, good question. So this indicator helps with levels, but not direction. Well, okay, so good question there. So here's how I look at it as, first of all, of course, now one of the things I'll do is just like, okay, are we in an uptrend or a downtrend, right? So a real easy thing is just throw a 21 period moving average on there. And if you're trading above it, you're in an uptrend. If you're trading below it, you're in a downtrend, right? So there's some things to that too. But what I'll do on something like this is that, okay, it's like if I'm, and of course I love squeezes and things like that too. Where's a market where we recently had a squeeze? Maybe it was Ulta. Yeah, so on Ulta. So it's like, okay, we're sitting here, we got a squeeze. Ulta looks crappy here, but now we see we're at the tree line. So that's a good level to buy it. All right. It's sloppy. But we know that the tree line is pretty powerful. So it's like, all right, so we can buy that there. Or we wait and see if it gets above the 21. And then it's like, okay, where's this going to go? Well, again, remember, just place orders at levels. Well, I guess I'll take some off here. And it's like, oh, cool, it's going. I'll take some off here. God, if I still have any left, is it going to get to the fire line? What a cool move. But again, if you just restrict yourself to only placing trades at these levels, entries and exits, it's, suddenly what happens is, here's the biggest difference that this does in your trading. It makes it much more rare that you're going to be looking at the charts and actually executing a trade to get in. What instead is you're going to become a factory worker and you're just going to place orders. Okay. You're going to sit there and say, oh, okay, here we are here. If we can come down here, I'm gonna buy Alta, or I'll buy some call options on it. You set your alert, or you set your conditional order. So what happens is you spend your day placing orders. It's low stress. You're in a neutral state of mind, right? And then that's it. You become more of a factory worker, and because you're less emotional about it, it's just a lot different. So it does change the game for a lot of people. PayPal. PayPal does not have it yet. So PayPal, and this one that may be added, it's a little bit newer company. It's only 2 years old, so we like a little bit more history. But at some point, it'll get added. So that's one thing. Again, if it's a newer company, typically it is not going to have those levels on there, but it does get added. So Square does have it. You can kind of see there's that big fire line there where it's been a big important level. Twitter. Yep, you can see it kind of hanging around there. So Derek from Colorado just summed it up. He's like, JC, you know what? I've had less oh shit trades with the Voodoo lines. And I think that's probably the best way to sum it up. All right, guys. Well, let me just put this back up here one more time so you guys can see what to do. Again, if you go to the page, it'll show you where the classes are and when they are. Again, if you already have the Voodoo lines, if you're already a subscriber, first of all, thank you. We appreciate it. Secondly, you don't have to do anything. You'll get the information for it. Secondly, if you've bought the Voodoo lines, but you decided that you didn't need the updates anymore, all you have to do is email us. We'll get your updates going again. $47 a month, and then you can also join the classes. And then, of course, if you've never seen these before, first of all, I'm excited for you because this is I'm excited for you. And again, instead of having to buy both for nearly $2,000 for $97 a month, you can get it for $997 and $47 a month. It'll change your trading. All right. So that's what we got. I'm happy to answer more questions, but of course, I don't want to keep you guys all night. David, I don't know if there's anything else you can think of, but I think, it's 8:20. We've been going for an hour and 20 minutes, so it's probably a good time to stick a fork in it here in the next 5 minutes.
Yeah, John, we've done a lot tonight. I am really looking forward to Thursday when we get to spend a lot more time digging into, okay, now we've seen the levels and they look great. Some nitty gritty on how to go through them. So I'm looking forward to spending time doing that with everyone. And then as you know, I'm going to be down in Austin next week, so I'll be sitting next to you when we do the live trading next week, and Henry when we do the live trading next week. So looking forward to all of that. The one thing that just came up in a question about, do they work on Renko charts? The nice thing about having levels for folks who use alternate style charts, it really does not matter what style of chart you like to use. Just our normal time charts, tick charts, volume charts, point and figure, range, Renko. You can put them on top of market profile charts, volume profile charts, whatever you like. You can put these levels on them and see them there because they're just levels, and that's one of the beautiful things.
Yeah.
That's all I've had.
Yeah, no, I think that's perfect, David. I think that's and that's the thing is, and it's a really good point, is that whether you're using Renko, point and figure, whatever charting style you like, the lines are still there. So that's something that's really cool. The other thing I really like is that I'll have one chart that's the monthly chart that I could see the big picture, but if I'm trading futures on a 5-12 tick chart, it's going to zoom in. Those same levels are going to be there. It's just going to be more of a zoomed in view. And that's something that I like quite a bit as well. And, when we do the live trading, we'll do some options trades. We'll do some futures trades. We'll look at swing trades. We'll look at day trades, just so you can kind of how to see it, based on the time frame and stuff like that too. All right. Excellent, guys. Well, I'll leave this page up. Again, thanks for joining us. And, again, for those of you that already have the Voodoo lines, looking forward to spending some more time with you. And again, for those of you that don't have them, I'm excited for you. I know the impact that these have. And, we don't talk about these very much just because we've been using them for 5 years. And so we kind of forget, oh, there may be new people here that actually don't know what these are. Let's talk about them. Let's offer a deal and get them going, because it'll make a big impact. All right. All right, guys, have a good one. Looking forward to working with you during the live trading portion of this. Have a good night, and we'll see you tomorrow in the trading room.